So now that we have completed all the requirements of developing our apps on Flutter, let's get started by creating a new project. Now as you can see, I have created a folder called Flutter projects in my desktop. Now it does not have to be a desktop, you can create a directory anywhere you like. So inside of this folder, I will be keeping all my Flutter projects. So now let's get started by creating a new Flutter project. So let's launch our VS Code. So now let's open up our Flutter project directory. So click at File, Open Folder, and in my case it is on the desktop. So desktop, Flutter project, select folder. So now let's open up our terminal so that we can create a new Flutter project. So I want you to click on this terminal and then new terminal. So this will open up our terminal, and as you can see, this is taking quite a space in our VS Code. So I want to move this terminal to our right side. So click here in the secondary sidebar and then drag this terminal over here. Also drag this debug console, output, problems, and you can just close these ports. So now we are ready for our development. So you can also drag this to wherever you want. So let's create our new Flutter project. So type Flutter, create, and then the project name. So in project name you cannot type any special characters. So we'll be only using underscore, dash, or simply letters and numbers, right? So our first project will be Hello Flutter. So Hello Flutter, and enter. So after this is completed, you can see a new folder has been created with our app name. So Hello Flutter, if you expand this, you can see all the files and folders that has been created by this command. So here you can see that this Flutter projects is the root directory of our VS Code. So instead of this Flutter projects being the root directory, we want this Hello Flutter to be the root directory so that we can run our terminal in an easier way. So click at File, Open Folder, and inside of this Flutter project, we want this Hello Flutter to be our root project, so select folder. Now this will open up our new window, and here you can see the root directory is our Flutter app directory, right? Now here you can see we have different files and folders, and it might seem a little complex, but the only folder that is relevant for our development is this lib folder. Every code we write and every file that will be created will be inside this lib folder. All these other files and folders has been created for the supporting purposes. For instance, this Android folder is created for building our Android app. This is for the iOS, this is for Linux, this is for Mac OS, this is for web, and this is for Windows. So we do not care about any of this. These are automatically created and we do not need to understand what's inside of it for now. These folders are responsible for compiling our code and developing cross-platform apps. And cross-platform apps are created by the things that we keep inside of our lib folder. So only this folder is relevant to us, and everything else will be handled by the Flutter. And same goes with these two folders as well. Now if in your project there are some folders missing or there are some additional folders, then you do not need to worry about that. Only this lib folder is relevant to us. Now the other files that has been created over here are important, but we do not need to understand what's inside of them for now. When time comes, I'll eventually explain what each of these files does. For now, what you need to understand is only this lib folder is relevant to us, and other all files and folders are for the sole purpose for compiling and for the requirements of our project. So don't delete any of these files or folders, otherwise our project might crash. So let's get started by having a look at what's inside of this main.dart. So inside of this main.dart file, there are a lot of code. Don't worry, we will clear this all and we will start from the scratch. So the code that you see inside of here is for the sample project called Flutter demo. So let's try to run this project in our emulator. So for this, we need to launch our emulator first. So go into View, Command Palette, and type emulator. Now here you can see Flutter launch emulator. So click here, and then you can see the list of emulators that you had created previously from Android Studio. So click at any of this emulator. I'll be clicking at this, and this will launch up our emulator for us. So this is my emulator. Your emulator might seem a little different, but it does not matter. Once the emulator has been started, in our VS Code, you can see that we have got our emulator name over here in our status bar. Now if this status bar is not visible on your VS Code, go into this view and then appearance, and you can check this status bar. So once this is done, we are ready to launch our project in our emulator. So click at run and then start debugging. So now Flutter will install our app in the emulator and launch it for us. So the first launch might take a lot of time. Keep patience and it will launch eventually. So after a couple of minutes, Flutter have launched this app on my emulator. This is a sample app. It does basically nothing except this counter will increase every time we press this floating button. Right? Now if you close this app, you can see that our Hero Flutter app has been installed in our system and it is ready to run. So congratulations for creating your first Flutter app and then launching it in your emulator. Now in the next lesson, we will be cleaning everything and we will start from the scratch. Now there is an important thing that you need to keep in mind while you are running your Flutter app. Now whenever you click at this start debugging, make sure that this main.dart file is selected and is active on your editor. For instance, if I selected any other file from here, say I selected this popsec.yaml, and if I click at this start debugging, I'll be getting an error saying that this YAML file can't be debugged, right? So whenever you click at this start debugging, make sure that you are focusing on main.dart file on the editor. So I have been said that I'll see you at the next lesson.